Hi everybody, welcome to Let Kami Transform Your Assessments. My name is Ben Sondgeroth and I'm happy to be here at Kami Connect presenting for you today. As I said, my name is Ben Sondgeroth. I am the lead regional EdTech coordinator for the Learning Technology Center of Illinois. I've been a Kami user for several years now and just love this tool and love showing and helping teachers find new ways to discover how to use it in their classrooms. I'm a former high school history teacher, so some of the examples you might see today come directly from what I taught my students. I speak with a thick history accent, but we're going to look and explore other disciplines as well and subjects as we go through this. So if you feel free to follow me on Twitter, my handle is @Mr_Sondgeroth. Now, let's dive in. Let's talk assessments first. Okay, so what are we doing here? So we're talking about letting Kami transform an assessment. Assessment can be a broad term. Okay, when what we're looking at is how can we get students to kind of demonstrate what they know, think, feel, and understand about a topic. And so you've got all sorts of assessments that you've used in the past, whether that be different worksheets, quizzes, and then now in our COVID age, we're transforming the way students are assessed on their learning with many digital tools, and Kami's perfect for that. So when we're looking at what we're going to talk about here in our session today, we're going to look at how can we transform a traditional assessment that you've used in the past and make it better with Kami. So how can we take something that we used before and just transform it into an interactive experience for our students? And then we're going to look at specific features of Kami that allow you to create new styles of assessments. So how can we maybe leverage technology to reimagine how we assess student learning in the classroom? We'll explore some specific features that Kami offers us to allow students to express their learning in new ways. That's going to be really exciting. So those two kind of blend together. And then lastly, it's so important, especially when we maybe don't have kids directly in front of us, or we have students that we need to make learning more accessible, or you have new technologies that you didn't have before, and so you can now make student learning more accessible. Kami offers a host of accessibility tools that will bring learning to every one of your students. So without further ado, let's dive in. So let's talk about transforming those traditional assessments. We can take what we've used in the past and use Kami to transform it into something better and something more powerful and just awesome. And one of the tools that's amazing for that is OCR. If you've used Kami before and you've opened up something that you've scanned into Kami, and it comes up with the option that says run OCR, what that does is that allows that document to now be read by basically your computer. So I equate it to taking something that's flat and then raising the text up. And so that way you can run Kami tools like text-to-speech. So that way those documents become more accessible for your students. So if you haven't messed with OCR or played with it or run that before when it's come out as an option, I highly suggest doing that. And now let's take a trip and demo this out, because the next one is actually split and merge. And this is one that I find teachers just absolutely love. Because with split and merge, when you open up Kami from the extension, you see you have OCR at the top here and split and merge right next door. And when we open up split and merge, we actually have the ability now to add multiple files together and merge them. So if you have multiple assessments that maybe you want to combine into one, you can do that here. But then we can also split files as well. So when we're looking at splitting files, we're going to go ahead and go into my Google Drive here. I'm going to open up my Kami assignments folder. Find my Kami Connect folder here, and then go down and find this Political Cartoons PDF. So this Political Cartoons PDF is one that I found, it's an awesome collection of activities, but it's huge. It has, several pages here, and maybe I only want to take one or two out. Prior to this, I would have had to print it out, scan the pages that I want back in, and then, it's just a lot of work. What I can do now is open this up in Split and Merge, pull these files down, and now go over here to export, and that's going to allow me to either open directly in Kami, save to my Google Drive, or download just those two pages and make them into one file. So it allows you to simplify, these big, large PDF files that you get, or other files too. It can be a Google slideshow, it can be anything, and load them in and then break them apart. So you can see we've all done. We're going to open this up in Kami now, and instead of having that long extended 20-page file, we're only going to have 2 pages, which can make learning much easier for our students, much less work for you as well. So you can see here, I have now all of these, I only have 2 pages instead of all those other ones. So the split and merge tool is really wonderful for allowing us to annotate and take files that were big and make them more concise. So those are two tools that can take those traditional assignments and merge them. Well, what happens when you now have those tools available? What are the tools that we can use? So there's a very traditional style of assessment that we're working with here. With our political cartoons, we have now some boxes here that we want our students to now edit. So in the past, we might have printed these out, spent a whole lot of money on paper, but our students can now go over to the text box. And instead of having to write in the answer, they can just insert a text box and type out their answers. Wonderful. Just an absolutely great ability for our kids to now type what they know instead of possibly having to write. And these boxes, they're super small. So if you were to print this out and hand it, they wouldn't be able to write very much in there. Now they can type, they can change the font size, and they can put a lot more information in that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to. Okay. The other thing, and this is actually a great example here, this political cartoon assignment, what I might have had my students do in the past is write on it. So they could have taken a pen, they would have circled different things, annotated directly on the images, but Kami is going to allow them to do that digitally. So they won't have to use pen and paper anymore to write on their files. They can go over to the drawing tools, select a different stroke thickness depending on what they're attempting to outline, and then choose a different color. So we'll use green so it stands out a little bit better. And then now you can see I can use my cursor to annotate directly on top of that image. And these annotations stick. So when the students go to submit this to you through Google Classroom or through Schoology or Canvas, they're going to be able to do that, and all of these annotations will come with it. So just an absolutely amazing tool and resource. The last thing is, what about students that you have a reading assignment and you want them to actually mark up this? So again, you would have maybe printed something out, handed it to them. They would have used a highlighter or a pen to go through and do a close reading activity. Well, let's look at the Gettysburg Address. Again, speak with a little bit of a history accent here, but we can transform this into any sort of literature, right? Here's the Gettysburg Address. What if I want my students to go through and highlight 4 key phrases that Lincoln said while giving the Gettysburg Address? Well, we can go to the markup tools here, and then we have the option for text highlighter, box highlighter, strike through, or underline. And we can also change the colors. So I'm going to go to text highlighter in yellow, and then we'll highlight just different text inside of the document here. And those annotations then can be made, and then our students perhaps might be able to even go in, add text boxes in, and talk about those different annotations directly in the file. So something that would have taken, many different pages and, sometimes would have been a little chicken scratch perhaps by a student, you can allow them to expand on their learning in many different ways. So I find that taking these traditional assignments, we can make them so much better with Kami. Lastly here, as we kind of expand on that, notice that prior to this, I might have had my students read through this assignment, mark it up, highlight, underline, all of that good stuff, and then write a reflection. Well, with Kami, we can have them do it, but they can do it all in the same document. So we might just have them scroll down a little bit and then insert a text box and type out a reflection. But here's something else that they can do. So maybe we want to make this activity even more. So this is just a PDF that I got from PBS. So it's just a very printed out, non-original style of paper here. But if I add another page at the bottom, so if you have a PDF or a Kami document, you can go down to the plus sign, you can add more pages to these files because you might want to expand on it. So you can see I've already done that. But perhaps I want to enrich this activity a little bit. I'm going to go down to the add media, and this is going to blend into our new styles of assessments that we can create. And we're going to actually insert an image. So you have 3 different ways that you can insert an image here. You can insert one from your computer, so if you've downloaded it already. You can insert one that you have saved to your Google Drive, or you can do a Google image search. So when I open up Google image search, I can type in what I want to search for. And then now I have a Google image search that I could select, say, a more interesting looking image, and then drop that directly in, make it bigger, and instead, I could have both now. So I could have the kind of easier to read, PDF version, but then also have an image version of it that maybe came from that time period. So just a nice way that you can enrich your activities in new and exciting ways. There's lots of ways we can take those traditional activities. One more that I want to showcase is the typical multiple choice. So here's a quiz that I would have otherwise given my students. It's in a Google Doc. Now, Google Docs are wonderful. You can do a whole lot with Google Docs. But as far as like multiple choice questions and stuff like that, they're okay. They're not the best tool and medium for this, and they don't make it very accessible. So what I want to do perhaps is show you that you can actually take something that you have in a Google Doc and then transform it into a Kami assignment or a Kami document, okay? So I'm gonna go into my Google Drive here. You can see here's my Chapter 24 quiz. And instead of just double clicking and opening it up with Google Docs, I'm gonna right click on it, go to Open With, and then Annotate with Kami. And when I do that, it will take that Google Doc and transform it into a Kami document. And then I can share it out with my students through Google Classroom as a Kami assignment. So here it is. Now we've converted it over, and this is now going to make this document more accessible for my students, and we'll highlight some of those accessibility features moving forward. But one of those great features might be that my students can go over to the markup tab, use the highlighter, and then they can highlight their answer. So instead of having to use the Google tools to do this, we can just do it all inside of Kami, which I think is wonderful. So those are some ways we can transform those traditional assignments. Let's talk through some ways that we might create new sorts of assessments with Kami. Kami allows for so many different ways we can do this. We've kind of highlighted some of them already with inserting images in and transforming Google Docs into Kami documents. So that way we bring the whole suite of Kami tools into effect. But one of the things that is brand new to Kami, and I am so excited about this, is that we can insert YouTube videos directly into our Kami documents now for our students to watch and learn from in real time. So let me give you an example of this. Here's a Google slideshow. I'm presenting from it right now. And maybe I want to put a YouTube video in for my students. Perhaps you guys are teachers taking a Kami course that I'm teaching you, and you're using my slides to learn from. Well, I can insert a video directly into this using Google Slides. That's fine, but here's one of the problems with that. If I insert a YouTube video into Google Slides and I start watching it, I can't type simultaneously inside of the Google slideshow. It doesn't work. As soon as I click off of the video stops playing. That's really difficult for students then to watch a video and take notes at the same time. So what I'm going to do instead is actually go into my Google Drive, find my slideshow here. We're going to do the same thing we just did with that Google Doc. We're going to open this slideshow and we're going to annotate with Kami. And now you can see it's taken my Google Slides and turned it into a Kami document that now has all of those Kami features available on it. So just take a second to load, and it looks very much the same. And as I scroll up a little bit, you'll see that I have now that slide that I inserted for the video. So I'll go over here to Media, and this is where we're going to find that YouTube video. Okay, so we're going to go into Add Media, and then there is a YouTube option. So we'll select that, and it allows me to do a YouTube video search. Well, I just happen to have, that's quite the picture of me there. We're going to copy that. We're going to copy the title of the video, and then go back into our YouTube video search, hit paste on that, and do a quick search. It's going to be the first one that pops up. Hit select. And now it's going to load that video, and as that turns blue, we're going to go ahead and hit insert, and then we just drop it into our slides, and it will play when we click on it.
Hi everybody, my name is Ben Sondgeroth,
which is super cool. And the thing that I always like to highlight is that we can now drop a text box in next to it, make this a little bit bigger, and as we're watching this, I can have a text box pop up, and I can take notes while watching the video, which I think is super cool for kids to be able to watch a video and take notes at the same time, all in the same document. Game changer. So that is definitely a way that we can transform a new style of assessment. We're having students watch videos and take notes simultaneously. Think about this. If you're a teacher that over the course of the last 6 to 8 months, you've now developed this routine where you make videos yourself and then you upload them to YouTube for your students to watch and take notes from. That's how you're lecturing. That's how you're getting your information out to your kids. Well, if you do that already, you can take those YouTube videos, drop them into a Kami document, and then share those out to your students through Google Classroom, through Schoology, through Canvas, and they'll be able to watch the video and take notes or answer questions all at the same time. A super awesome way to bring video into your classroom. So some of these other features that we're talking about here, We already discussed inserting those images into the assessment for your students to analyze. I just find that to be an awesome way too. I use primary sources all the time with my kids, and it just would save so much paper if we can just drop those into a Kami document rather than printing them out and handing them to them, and especially if they're remote. There's no way to get those pictures home to them. So this is a great way to do it. So those are some of the new styles. Let's talk through now how we can allow students to express their learning. Okay, so how can we take and give students a new way to express themselves that sometimes is very limited in a traditional assessment that is just handed out on paper? And that's going to be some of the tools that we already talked about, but also the introduction of some new ones. So for example, a Kami document has a host of tools that I'm drawn to that allows students to demonstrate their learning in several different ways and let us hear what they know, think, feel, and understand about a topic. So when we're looking at this, how can we allow students to express themselves without having to write it out? Because we have students that maybe need that, or maybe there's classes that lend themselves to that in a little bit better way. For example, a Spanish class, a foreign language class, any foreign language class. We want our students to practice speaking the language. And with Kami, we can have them open up a Kami document. So this is a PDF that I've found on the internet about colors, and they're in Spanish. And this is great because it's helpful because it's showing the kids this is green, this is blue, this is yellow. But how can we get them to interact with it a little bit more? So this might be something that we handed out for student support prior to, but we want to make it and transform it. Well, we can do that with the commenting tools. So in the comment tools over here, we're able to insert text comments, voice comments, video comments, and screen capture comments. Revolutionary ways to engage with content as far as I'm concerned. And for this example here in this Spanish class, we can insert voice comments and we can have our students click, say, on the color, verde, and record themselves actually saying the word. So we're taking a vocabulary activity that would have otherwise students just kind of sitting at home, probably reading it, memorizing it. And instead, azul, actually practicing how to say it, and then they can listen back
Azul.
to it, and then they can also submit this to you, and you can listen to them practice. I think this is an amazing thing. As a student who, when I was a student, I was taking Spanish classes. I think one of the things that I struggled with was actually speaking the language. Still to this day, I can read it fairly well after all of the semesters that I took. But speaking it is in actually like understanding when somebody speaks it to me is difficult. And I think a large part was because I never practiced. I didn't get to practice as much as I wanted to, or probably should have. And this would have been a great way for me to practice without having to be nervous to do it in front of a whole group of students, And then my teacher, when the student submits this back to you through Google Classroom, you can also provide feedback to them. So, if you have a student that says something that's not quite right, you could have yourself go in, insert a voice comment, and you could correct them. You could give them tips and tricks on how to actually say that word correctly or demonstrate the meaning of that a little bit differently. So I really find that those things are great. Now, the other thing that I think is really powerful, especially when we're talking through reading comprehension or understanding, is actually seeing people's lips move. That's a huge part of this. And in today's world where we're wearing masks a lot, that's really difficult because kids can't see your lips move. So they're maybe not seeing how you roll the N or roll the R. Like I can't do those things. But what you can do instead to help them is you can put a video comment in, and then you can select where you want to put that video comment in. It'll turn your webcam on. Rojo. And hit done. And then now you see in the side margin here, you have a video comment from your webcam that shows your face and how you're saying those words. This can go beyond, just simply, doing vocabulary words. This could be you explaining something to your students that they need more in-depth understanding on. It can go tremendously further than this. But then also your students can record themselves and send that back to you, and everything sticks, which I think is super cool and really neat. So definitely different ways for our students to demonstrate their understanding. Now, there's one other comment tool over here that I find to be extremely powerful, and that's going to be the screen capture comment. And so we'll look at this and we'll actually go back to that Gettysburg Address example here. And my students went through and they read the Gettysburg Address, they made their annotations, but now I want them, maybe some of them struggle with typing and they don't want to actually, type out their answers. They want to just explain to you what's going on. So what they can do is they can go to the comment option, go to screen capture comment, click anywhere in the Kami document, and then it's going to ask them to share their screen and also pop up a window down in the bottom corner. So we're going to share my entire screen. And what this is doing is creating a screencast then of what they're looking at here. So my students can go through the Gettysburg Address and say, I was really confused. When he said 7 years ago, I didn't know what he was talking about. So I had to look that up. And then also, he mentioned the Civil War, which I found to be very interesting. So they can go through, create that screen capture comment, drop it in to the side margin, and then when they submit this to you through Google Classroom, you'll be able to click on the video. And what this is doing is creating a screencast then of, and that was all the video was, and you can listen to the student actually talk through their Kami document. So it could be the Gettysburg Address. They could do this on a slideshow like this. They could record themselves going through each slide and then have that be embedded directly in there. So it's a really awesome way for our students to be able to demonstrate their learning differently and really explain their thinking as they're going through something. Now, let's look at that from the teacher side of things too. You as a teacher can open up, say, an assignment that might be a little complex. Now, this is my blank assignment here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and add a comment, and we're going to add the screen capture comment. And as I'm doing this, I'm going to actually go through and explain what I want the students to do and which tools I want them to use in the process. So I can click in here. It'll start my screen recording after I select my screen. All right, guys, here's our activity for today. So you can see we're talking about enlarging the nation state and the territory that the United States took over the course of its early history. So what I need you to do in this area here is use the text box option on the left-hand side from your sidebar. Go over, type in the date acquired, the previous owner, and then the circumstances of acquisition. So you'll use text boxes for that. Now, as you can see, as we scroll down, there's going to be 8 different purchases or extended things that I want you to cover. And then when you get to the last page here, we have a map of the United States. You see it's vertical. We need that to be horizontal. So go up to your 3 lines in the top right-hand corner of your screen and rotate it clockwise. That's going to give you a better canvas to work. Then I want you to use either the drawing tools or the shape tools to outline on the map those different acquisitions that the United States made. Make sure you use a different color. If you just see those 3 colors, hover, you'll see more, or click on the color palette and you'll get a whole host of other colors to use as well. When you're finished, you can rotate it back counterclockwise and then submit it to me through Google Classroom. Thanks, guys. So I was able to make an instructional video using the screen capture comment that's embedded directly into the Kami document. Now you might be thinking like, that's great. How do you then get it to your kids? Because we've talked about sharing to Google Classroom and Canvas and Schoology. So I'm going to use Google Classroom as my example here. So inside of Google Classroom, I can open it up, use create, and then create a Kami assignment. Or when you're inside of the actual file itself, you can go to 3 lines in the top, and then you see there's an option to create a Google Classroom assignment right here. So you don't even have to leave the Kami document. You can just do it directly in there from the menu, which is pretty awesome. So see, this looks exactly like it would as if I was going to send it out to my students. Through Google Classroom, I just have to hit select, choose the class, and then you can see I have all of my students. So the only one currently in there is writer. We'll name this. You see I've made a copy for each student. I can put a point value on it, due date, schedule a time, all that good stuff down here. And then we can also make sure we authorize our Google Drive, go through. So if you want to attach more files into it, you can. That is up to you. So here we go, select that. Oh, duplicate files, not allowed. remove the duplicate, duh. Whoop, it was already there. And then we'll go ahead and hit assign. And as a student now, it'll take just a second for that to get out to them, but when they open it up, they'll have all of that in front of them. So they'll have the video there. So let's go into our student here. We'll go into classwork. You can see the assignment is now there. We'll go ahead and have Ryder open his up. We'll click the purple button up here to open with Kami. And as he opens this up, you can see it took on the naming conventions just like a normal Google tool would. And then also over here, we have that screencast that we made and the screen capture so he can listen to the instructions that you want him to be able to do on that activity. I think it's super powerful. So here is our last thing. And we've talked about some of these things, but there's just a couple of more that I want to make sure that we highlight here. And that's we want to make things more accessible. So to do that, I think teachers using media comments can be super helpful for that. But then also having your students respond with media comments. So giving students the ability to, respond with their voice, respond with a video, and teachers explaining with those comments what those students need to do in an activity. Super impactful for those students that need that accessibility. But then there's some other features in here, including speech to text, text to speech, and then also the dictionary. So we'll go back here and we'll open up the Gettysburg Address because perhaps we want this to be read as a student. Well, there is the option to go to text to speech. And there are a lot of different voices. And depending on what language your document is in, you can change the voice and it will read it in that language, which is super cool. Okay, we're going to use Alex for this one. We're going to imagine Alex is actually Abe for Abe Lincoln. And then what we'll do is we can select certain text. And then as soon as we select that.
But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground.
So you can see it'll just read it as soon as you select it. Now, if you wanted it to read the whole page, you can select read page and that will read the entire page. I think this is awesome. You saw when it was doing that as far as accessibility goes, it highlights the words as it reads. You can also speed it up or slow it down depending on kind of what that student needs to be able to best comprehend what the computer is saying to it or what the device is saying to it. Just an awesome accessibility feature. Now, if you remember, in this particular activity, I wanted the students to write a reflection. Well, perhaps, the student struggles to type, okay? Well, you can use a text box for this and then go up to your options at the top and all the way on the right-hand side, there's a microphone. And with that microphone, now we have speech to text. So our students do not need to type. They can just use their voice to type. And then once it's done, they can go in and they can edit that to actually make sense. So again, an awesome accessibility feature for those students that maybe they don't want to put a voice comment in, but they want to just put text like, everybody else does. I've heard from teachers that kids love to use this. So this is an awesome accessibility feature. And then the last one I want to highlight before we wrap is the dictionary. And so if I, want to find out what brave means, the students can select dictionary, highlight the word, and then it gives me the definition directly in there. So again, great for those students that, just don't quite know what a certain word means and they need to look it up. They don't have to copy and paste it into a Google search or anything like that. They can just select the dictionary over here, highlight it, open it up, and it'll show them right there. So very cool stuff. And then I would be remiss if I don't showcase the last thing, and this will be it before we wrap, add media stickers. These are so fun. You can add in all sorts of fun stickers into your Kami assignment to kind of promote that for your students. So those are some awesome ways that I can think of to kind of transform your Kami document and your assessments and just make them more accessible for your learners, make them more engaging, make them more interactive. I hope you found it exciting. I hope you found it, found some new inspiration in how to use Kami with your students. Feel free to reach out. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr_Sondgeroth and on Instagram at Ben.Sondgeroth. So I hope you enjoy the Kami Connect. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks for watching.